course, not all the machines, just the ones that are accessible, have an issue with the straight party voting and a programming issue that's, again, affected the machines.
So this comes out today. Michigan, the Dominion voting machines are having problems. So first off, I guess Michigan has this weird system where they're different than every other state. Michigan Secretary of State came out and said, and she's like, yeah, it sucks, we're mad about it, but we can't do anything.
As upset about it as we are. So, yeah, or surprised, I think, yeah.
At early voting sites and polling places, voting assist terminals allow voters to select candidates on a touchscreen, printing choices on a ballot for verification before submission. Due to the issue, voters choosing straight party and then splitting their ticket will see an error message. Although the error doesn't prevent voting, those wanting to split their ticket must deselect the straight party option and individually select candidates. And yeah, I mean, how many people are going to forego that option? So this issue with Dominion voting assist terminals is specific to Michigan because Michigan allows a unique voting option where straight party voting with the ability to override individual races. I mean, this is stupid to me, but I guess what they're saying is that you could basically click a button, hit all Democrat, or click a button and then hit all Republican, and then you could individually select exceptions that you don't like. I want this Democrat congressperson instead of all Republican. So in Michigan, voters can choose a straight party ticket but still select individual candidates from other parties in specific races. In contrast, many states do not offer this combination of straight party voting with individual race overrides, so their voting equipment is generally not programmed to accommodate it. So I mean, maybe you could, like, I guess the select all is just for efficiency, but the Dominion machines suddenly can't handle the simple task of hitting select all and then clicking one different option, then that's not part of the select all. So that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about the option to select all or not having the option to select all. Most states have one or the other. Michigan has a hybrid where you could hit select all, but then you could individually choose a few that you don't want to be part of the select all. And the Dominion technology that we love and trust so much from the last election, from that great experience, it's not able to handle the processing power that takes, and it's coming up with an error message. So basically, if you don't want to do select all, you have to individually select each one. And here's what the Secretary of State for Michigan came out and said today.
Nationwide, and I think all of us that use Dominion machines were unhappy to learn about this during the testing period and as early voting began. So we're working with Dominion to seek accountability on that front, and also are working with our clerks to ensure voters are aware of this programming issue that will require them to ensure they are voting every section on the ballot.
Now let me tell you something. This lady, I had a weird feeling from her the moment I first heard her speak. I saw a clip from her like a month or two ago with this really spooky, threatening message. Here it is.
If someone were to violate the law and not certify the election at the local level, we will come for you. So any local certifier thinking of skirting the law and not certifying the vote, don't even think about it, because we'll get.
You know who I thought of when I first saw this lady? The first person I thought was that czar of misinformation who was like coming out with the musicals in her office where she was singing songs about misinformation.
Pondering is really quite ferocious. It's when a huckster takes some lies and makes them sound precocious.
But Jocelyn Benson, let me tell you some weird things I found about Jocelyn Benson. And the reason I'm fixating on her is because Secretary of State, like the state's Secretary of State, not the federal Secretary of State, this is the person who is the end-all be-all for elections for the state, which is why it was weird that Kari Lake was running against the Secretary of State to be governor, and then her opponent got to oversee the election, but that's neither here nor there. So Jocelyn Benson became Secretary of State in 2019 for Michigan, right? So she was a Marshall Scholar at Oxford, all right? So you might have heard of the Rhodes Scholarship before, the scholarship that the UK gives to students in the US. So the Marshall Scholar is pretty similar to that, but this is the type of place you go to be like become like a young global leader. It's that same type of thing, like being groomed basically by the global elite. All right, so her research was focused on studying the sociological implications of white supremacy and neo-Nazism. Then she's appointed to be the dean of Wayne State Law School in December 2012 at the age of 35, becoming the youngest woman to lead a top 100 law school in the United States history. Oh, and let me not forget, in 2010, when she's 33 years old, she writes a book that's called State of Secretaries of State, Guardians of the Democratic Process, which focused heavily on the role of the Secretary of State in elections and protecting against election fraud and upholding election security. But she did not run for Secretary of State until 2012 or 2014. She loses that one, then runs again in 2018, wins that one. So for all this time, she was like very fixated on being the Secretary of State. Like, she writes one book, it's about the position of Secretary of State. And then I know what you're asking next. What did she do when she became Secretary of State? How did she change the process in Michigan? All right, well, I got you. Ready? So she expanded early and absentee voting following the passage of Proposal 3 in 2018, which Benson advocated. Michigan adopted no excuse absentee voting, right? Okay, so this allowed voters to request absentee ballots without needing a reason, increasing access to voting for more Michigan residents. At the end of this, I'm going to show you a chart that's going to show why Michigan might be the most outlaw state in the country when it comes to elections, all right? Number 2, she allowed ballot drop boxes and satellite voting locations. Benson promoted the installation of secure ballot drop boxes and satellite voting locations across Michigan, especially for absentee voters. This measure aimed to give voters more convenient options to submit absentee ballots securely. Oh, and number 3, in response to concerns about election security, Benson introduced enhanced voter verification process, including audits of election results to ensure accuracy and build trust. Michigan conducted extensive post-election audits in 2020 to verify integrity of the results. Number 4, voter education and misinformation efforts. Benson launched campaigns to combat misinformation about voting, working hard to inform voters about reliable sources of election information. Oh, I would love to see that list. Her office has also been proactive in addressing misinformation through official communication channels. Number 5, recruitment and training of poll workers. Recognizing the need for well-trained election staff, Benson increased efforts to recruit and train poll workers and election volunteers, ensuring that election day operations run smoothly with a greater oversight. Number 6, accessible voting options. Benson focused on making voting more accessible for individuals with disabilities by expanding access to voter assist terminals and ensuring these devices are available at polling locations. And now those don't work. This shows let's take a look at this chart. Take a look at this chart. The amount of ballots in circulation is higher than the entire population of Michigan. This is pretty black and white. That should not be the case.